you hurt this?
I don't know.
Seinfeld was already legendary, but behind the laughs was a world of near disasters and bizarre decisions. These are 20 brand new shocking moments that could have changed the show forever. Fact 1.
These pretzels are making me thirsty!
It's hard to imagine Seinfeld without Larry David, but it almost happened for good. After 6 seasons, David walked away, exhausted by the pressure of running the writer's room. He said he'd run out of life experiences to turn into scripts. The network begged him to stay, fearing the show would lose its edge. David refused, disappearing from production entirely during season 8. Many critics noticed a shift in tone, calling the later seasons broader and less neurotic. Jerry took on more writing responsibility, but even he admitted it was different without Larry. David stayed away for the entire final season, except for one huge twist. He returned just to write the series finale. The cast said his absence changed the dynamic behind the scenes. Writers who had relied on him for approval suddenly had more creative freedom. Some loved it. Others felt the show lost part of its bite. Fans still debate whether the last 2 seasons measure up to the earlier ones. David himself said quitting was the best decision I ever made, except for coming back. It proved how much of Seinfeld's DNA came directly from one man's brain. Without him, the show survived. But it was never quite the same. And it all hinged on one man's decision to walk away at the peak of success.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. I thought this was the baby's room. I'm really sorry.
I was in the pool! I was in the pool!
Fact 2.
Don't worry. I gave him a little caffeine. He'll perk up.
I knew I felt something.
When Seinfeld debuted in 1989, it was called The Seinfeld Chronicles. The first season was so short it felt like a test, and in many ways it was. Ratings were terrible, ranking near the bottom of all network shows. NBC executives considered canceling it before all episodes aired. Only a handful of loyal supporters inside the network kept it alive. One executive famously called it too New York, too Jewish for Middle America. The show was shelved for months after its pilot run. It took nearly a year before NBC ordered season 2. And even then, it was just 13 episodes. Another cautious test. Seinfeld only avoided cancellation because the network had a hole in its schedule. It's one of the rare cases where a show bombed, disappeared, and then came back stronger. By season 4, it was a ratings giant. The early struggles are why the cast never took success for granted. Jerry still jokes that the show failed upward in its first year. If NBC had been more decisive, Seinfeld would be a forgotten pilot from the 80s. Instead, it became the most successful comeback in sitcom history. One scheduling fluke saved it from extinction.
Just because you two are homosexual, so what?
Fact 3. Before Jason Alexander was cast, NBC had a very different vision for George Costanza. They wanted a bigger, more physical comedian, someone who could go toe-to-toe with Kramer's energy. Danny DeVito was on the shortlist. He was already a star from Taxi and Ruthless People, and NBC thought he'd be a perfect, neurotic best friend. But Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David weren't convinced. They felt DeVito's presence would overshadow Jerry's character. Jason Alexander got the role after auditioning with a Woody Allen-inspired read. Even then, network execs weren't sure. They thought he was too mild until they saw his chemistry with Jerry. Alexander later admitted he based much of George's physicality on DeVito anyway. The casting switch changed the entire tone of the show. With DeVito, George might have been louder and more cartoonish. With Alexander, he became more grounded and more relatable. It's one of the biggest what-if moments in sitcom history, and it shows how one casting choice can rewrite television history. George, as we know him, almost never existed. Fact 4.
You wouldn't want to lose your cool at a time like this.
Why not?
Because right now, I'm the only chance you've got.
Newman's first appearance was actually off-screen, just a voiceover in season 2. He was meant to be a one-off gag. But Wayne Knight brought such a unique energy that the writers kept finding ways to use him. Newman became the perfect foil for Jerry, petty, sneaky, and hilariously vindictive. Still, NBC never officially made him a series regular. Knight was paid per episode with no guarantee of return. This meant Newman's appearances were always written last minute. The unpredictability kept the rivalry feeling fresh. Knight loved the freedom, and the fact that fans treated him like a major star despite not being in every episode. His chemistry with Seinfeld was so good that fans assumed they hated each other in real life. In reality, they got along fine. Knight said the role was the gift that kept giving because he never had to commit to full-time work. The decision to keep him unofficial was purely financial, and yet it created one of TV's most memorable recurring characters. Sometimes the best things happen by accident.
Did you, Mr. Kramer? Why?
Fact 5. Just before season 9, NBC tried one last time to keep Seinfeld going. They offered Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David $5 million each per episode for one more season. It would have made them the highest-paid TV stars in history. Both men turned it down. They said the creative spark was fading and they didn't want to dilute the legacy. The cast was stunned, especially since it would have meant massive raises for everyone. NBC executives were desperate, even floating the idea of a Seinfeld without Jerry. Larry David laughed at the suggestion. The rejection became part of TV legend. It's one of the rare times in Hollywood where money didn't win. For Jerry and Larry, walking away was the ultimate power move, and it cemented Seinfeld as a show that ended exactly when it wanted to. Fact 6.
Since I what? Agreed to wear the puffy shirt. What are you talking about?
The puffy shirt episode is one of the most iconic in Seinfeld history, but it almost got cut. When the idea was pitched, NBC executives thought it was too silly and didn't fit the show's tone. Larry David pushed hard, saying it was exactly the kind of absurdity Seinfeld thrived on. Jerry himself was hesitant, worried the visual gag would overshadow the dialogue. During filming, the shirt was so cumbersome that Seinfeld struggled to move naturally. He broke character multiple times, forcing retakes. Costume designer Charmaine Simmons had to remake the shirt to keep it from collapsing under its own weight. Even with adjustments, Jerry hated wearing it. But when the episode aired, the audience roared. It became one of the show's most merchandised moments. The Smithsonian eventually requested the original shirt for its pop culture collection. The irony? Jerry once called it the dumbest thing we ever did. And yet that dumb thing became immortal. It proved Seinfeld could turn a single ridiculous object into a cultural phenomenon. If the network had won the argument, one of the show's greatest visual jokes would have been lost forever. Fact 7.
You know that I was almost a lawyer? That close, huh? You better believe it.
For the first few seasons, Kramer was just Kramer. No first name, no backstory, just chaos. Fans speculated endlessly. Even NBC's marketing team didn't know his full name. It wasn't until season 6 that the writers revealed it, Cosmo. The reveal happened in the episode The Switch, and the audience erupted with laughter. Larry David said they kept the secret so long because mystery made Kramer funnier. Michael Richards was also protective, fearing too much backstory would box in the character. When the name was finally revealed, it gave fans a rare glimpse of Kramer's odd upbringing. The timing was deliberate. 6 seasons in, the show could afford to peel back one layer. It instantly became one of the most talked about episodes of the year. The reveal was even kept from some crew members until the table read. To this day, many casual viewers still don't know Kramer's first name. And that secrecy is exactly what made the moment so impactful. Sometimes less information makes a character more unforgettable. Fact 8.
Excuse me, I think you forgot my bread.
Bread, $2 extra.
$2, but everyone in front of me got free bread.
You want bread?
Yes, please.
$3! No soup for you!
The soup Nazi wasn't just a funny invention, he was real. Al Yeganay ran a famous soup stand in New York, known for his incredible recipes and his strict ordering rules. When the episode aired, fans swarmed his restaurant shouting, "No soup for you!" Yeganay hated it. He said the show ruined his business by making him look mean-spirited. Larry Thomas, the actor, later apologized in person, but Yeganay refused to shake his hand. Despite his frustration, The episode became one of the most rewatched in sitcom history. NBC lawyers confirmed that they had changed enough details to avoid legal trouble. But in interviews, Yeganey still called Seinfeld the worst thing that ever happened to Soup. The character became so famous that even years later, fans connected him to the line. It's a rare case where a real-life inspiration despised the fame the show brought. And yet, the Soup Nazi remains one of the most beloved TV guest roles of all time. Fact 9.
I can run that catalog no longer.
Who's gonna do it?
What about you?
Me? Why me?
Why indeed?
In the Season 8 premiere, Elaine becomes editor of the J. Peterman catalog and invents the urban sombrero. It was meant as a ridiculous joke, a floppy hat no one would ever wear. But fans loved it so much that the real J. Peterman company considered manufacturing it. They even made prototypes. Ultimately, they scrapped the idea, fearing no one would actually buy one. Years later, after the company relaunched, they sold a limited run of real urban sombreros as a collector's item. They sold out in days. Julia Louis-Dreyfus said it was one of her favorite prop gags in the entire series. The urban sombrero episode remains a perfect example of Seinfeld's ability to turn nothing into something unforgettable. What started as a throwaway joke became a real-life piece of sitcom history. Fact 10.
I saw your name on the buzzer. You must be Kessler.
No, actually, it's Kramer.
While Seinfeld was a sitcom, Michael Richards approached Kramer with near-method discipline. He avoided socializing with the cast between takes, staying in character's physical mindset. He would rehearse Kramer's entrances for hours to get the timing perfect. Richards said he treated Kramer like a living cartoon, but with strict internal logic. Even his wild hair was carefully sculpted with specific hair products to bounce on cue. He once measured his sliding entrances down to the fraction of a second. Crew members said he was the most physically disciplined actor they'd ever worked with. This intense preparation is why Kramer's physical comedy always felt effortless. It was anything but. Richards believed Kramer should never feel acted, only lived. And for 9 seasons, he kept that commitment. Fact 11.
Hello?
Of course, it's a sliding scale.
In the 90s, sitcoms were known for producing very special episodes, heartfelt storylines about serious topics. NBC pushed Seinfeld to follow the trend, arguing it would boost ratings and broaden its appeal. Jerry Seinfeld flat out refused, calling the show's no hugging, no learning rule sacred. Larry David agreed, saying sentimentality would ruin the experiment. Even in moments like George's fiancée, Susan dying from licking toxic envelopes, they kept it absurd and cold. This refusal made Seinfeld unique in a TV landscape full of moral lessons. It's why the show still feels fresh decades later. The cast later said they were relieved Jerry never caved. Fans came for the laughs, not lectures, and it forced the writers to find comedy where others would go for tears. By avoiding lesson episodes, Seinfeld stayed timeless. That choice is now seen as one of the show's smartest creative moves. Fact 12.
How long can fish live in one of these plastic bags?
I don't know, maybe 2 hours?
You better find this car.
On screen, the parking garage is simple genius. The gang spends the episode lost in a huge garage. Filming it was miserable. It was shot in a real garage during summer heat, with no ventilation. Jason Alexander nearly fainted from the conditions. To make matters worse, the car they were supposed to find broke down mid-shoot. Replacing it wasn't an option, so Larry David rewrote the ending on the spot. Now, instead of driving away, they find the car won't start. The change was pure improvisation, but felt like classic Seinfeld. Fans thought it had been scripted all along. It's now considered one of the best endings in sitcom history. Sometimes production chaos makes comedy magic. Fact 13.
I'm out.
What?
Yeah, I'm out. I'm out of the contest.
The Contest is one of the most famous sitcom episodes ever, and one of the riskiest. Its subject matter was too taboo for network TV in the early 90s. NBC censors initially refused to air it. Larry David refused to change the premise, but agreed never to use explicit words. Instead, he wrote clever euphemisms like "master of my domain." This not only kept it on air, but made the jokes sharper. Viewers instantly understood, and ratings soared. It won an Emmy for Outstanding Comedy Writing. Even NBC later admitted it had been the right call. It remains a perfect example of pushing boundaries without crossing them. Fact 14.
You don't think she'd yada yada sex?
I've yada yada sex.
Really?
Yeah.
During season 3, Julia Louis-Dreyfus was pregnant with her first child. The writers decided not to make it part of Elaine's story. Instead, the crew used baggy clothes, props, and blocking to hide it. In many scenes, she's sitting behind desks or holding large bags. Julia later said it was strange to be visibly pregnant off-screen, but invisible on-screen. The decision kept Elaine's character arc intact. Fans only learned about it years later in interviews. It's now considered a textbook example of handling an actor's pregnancy without altering the show. Fact 15.
Oh, hi.
Most TV themes are recorded once and reused forever. Seinfeld's was performed live for each episode. Composer Jonathan Wolfe watched Jerry's opening monologue and timed the bass to match his rhythm. No two intros were exactly the same. He adjusted tempo and tone depending on Jerry's delivery. It gave the show a subtle, organic energy viewers felt without realizing. Wolfe called it jamming along with Jerry every week. It's one of the smallest details that help make the show timeless. Fact 16.
Hey, Mario! Remember us?
No.
In the episode where George tries to move a Frogger arcade machine across a busy street, the prop was 100% real. It contained a functioning Frogger board with George's fictional high score programmed in. The cabinet was extremely heavy, making it a nightmare to maneuver during multiple takes. Jason Alexander had to rehearse the scene with the actual weight, so his struggle looked authentic. For the final crossing shot, the crew used a hidden dolly under the cabinet to make it possible. Still, the timing had to be perfect to avoid actual traffic. The game's high-score screen was custom-made by the prop department to match George's obsession. The level of detail was so convincing that fans thought they'd altered a real vintage machine. Even the sound effects during the crossing were genuine Frogger sounds. Alexander later said it was one of the most physically exhausting days on set. The gag became an instant fan favorite and is still referenced in arcade culture. It's a rare example of Seinfeld using a stunt with real danger involved, and the authenticity is exactly why the scene works so well. No fake cabinet could have captured the same frantic energy. Fact 17.
Hey, you know what would make a great coffee table book? A coffee table book about coffee tables.
In one of Seinfeld's most absurd moments, Kramer pitches a coffee table book about coffee tables, complete with fold-out legs. It was pure parody, but it didn't stay that way. Years later, a Seinfeld fan actually made the book in real life, legs and all. It became a cult collector's item, selling out quickly. Michael Richards loved the real-life version, saying it was proof the show's humor could leap off the screen. The prop from the episode is now in a private collection. Its design was intentionally over the top, with glossy photos of coffee tables that made no sense. The original joke was inspired by an actual oddball book Larry David once saw in a thrift store. The fact that fans turned it into reality is peak Seinfeld irony. It's one of the few times a ridiculous on-screen invention crossed over into the real world. And it shows how the show blurred the line between fiction and life. Fact 18.
I don't know what you had to tell her that for. You put me in a very difficult position, marine biologist.
The legendary scene where George saves a beached whale by pulling a golf ball from its blowhole was never part of the original script. Larry David came up with the idea days before filming. Jason Alexander received the monologue the morning of the shoot. He had just hours to memorize the entire thing. They shot it in one take, with no flubs. A rare occurrence in sitcom production. The laughter from the other actors in the scene is completely genuine. Alexander called it the most stressful but rewarding day of his Seinfeld career. The scene instantly became a fan favorite and is still one of George's most quoted moments. Without that last-minute brainstorm, the episode would have had a completely different ending. It's proof that sometimes the best comedy comes under pressure. Fact 19.
Get a little closer, so I can't see the screen door. Perfect.
The hallway outside Jerry's apartment was just a few feet long. It ended in a blank wall, with no real building beyond it. The crew redressed it repeatedly to make it look like different floors. This saved thousands in set construction costs over 9 seasons. Sharp-eyed fans have noticed the same doors appearing in multiple episodes. The trick was never addressed on screen. It was simply part of TV magic. By keeping the hallway minimal, they had more space for camera equipment. It's one of many hidden cost-saving measures that never hurt the show's quality. In fact, the small hallway made Kramer's entrances even funnier. His bursts through the door felt bigger because they came from such a confined space. Fact 20.
Listen, will you guys go to the operation with me?
In the Junior Mint episode, Kramer drops candy into a patient during surgery. The idea came from a true story about a doctor dropping an instrument. Larry David swapped the tool for candy to make it absurd instead of grim. The prop team made custom melting mints for the gag. It's still one of the show's most replayed moments, and it's pure Seinfeld. Dark inspiration turned into perfect comedy.